happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room, episode number 364 on December 3rd, 2025. My name is Jason Neiffer. I am the Executive Director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is the state virtual school located on the beautiful University of Montana campus. In fact, I'm wearing my Grizzwear today, located in Western Montana. So it's not just me tonight. Dr. Fryer, how are you tonight, sir?
Well, I am doing okay. I told people today at school I was standing upright and I was breathing, so that's a good start. I'm excited to be here. There is a lot going on in my life, but this is a highlight because we get to process the world of change. So I am currently still a middle school media literacy teacher here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we are just days away from Christmas break. So with kids, we have a 6-day rotating schedule. So I have 8 more days with students, and I actually have a little cancer surgery happening tomorrow. So it's minor, small thing, but anyway, I'm out for that tomorrow. Hopefully that'll be all good, but it's the year is winding down, and that is quite exciting. What does the schedule look like at the Montana Digital Academy? Are you guys moving into finals soon, or what happens for you guys?
No, we have a more kind of like Western US schedule. So we don't, our semester ends mid-January. I kind of wish we would move towards the, the more, the fall is the fall and spring is the winter spring. But we'll do our finals the third week of January, and then our semester goes to mid-June, or I should say early June, late May, early June, and that's a pretty kind of middle of the road Montana schedule. But we have really schedules in the state that are a lot of people turn them as big school, small school schedules. They're not. They're regional. The ones in the northeastern part of the state tend to start a little earlier, sometimes as early as the second week of August, and schools in the central and northwest tend to start sometimes as late as the second week of September. There have been instances of that, but then go to mid-June. So yeah, it's really all over the place here. But it is cold here now. Winter's here, and in fact, we had our first below zero night 2-3 nights ago, I think it was. Still in the holiday weekend, and I am not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to Wisconsin to present at a conference, and then I'm going to Japan. So I am getting out of the country, and so in fact, I'm this is a brand new hat that I'm trying to get stretched out appropriately.
I think it's looking good. Yeah, let's get some feedback from the audience. We have 4 live viewers. We have Peggy George. Hello, Peggy, and my dad, Tom Fryer, and oh, we just jumped up to 9 viewers. What the heck? Look at the hat, Jason. The hat is bringing out the fans.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Fryer. I like to say it just that way. So winter's here. But I don't think we're going to talk about the weather tonight, Dr. Fryer. What's on the agenda of the EdTech?
Well, we could. Sometimes we do. But yes, we did not rename this the AI Situation Show. However, I'm here to tell you, folks, I attended Dr. Neiffer's NCCE webinar last night, and we could talk AI nonstop. We do have a lot of articles about AI. These are categorized in the following subcategories: the rise of Gemini. In fact, I think I'm going to use Nano Banana Pro to create a Star Wars-esque rise of Gemini for this episode. AI and academic integrity, some phenomenal articles. And have you seen The Simpsons from October 7th about AI?
I've not seen the whole episode, but I've seen clips, and it's pretty
okay. I found a 7-minute clip, and it is so good. Vibe coding, or coding with AI, an excellent article about Anthropic's engineers, some miscellaneous AI. Then we've got a couple social media articles, big news out of Australia. We have some surveillance state articles, our favorite miscellaneous category. And then we will end, as always, with our Geeks of the Week. So I, again, want to thank you for your wonderful webinar last night. And it was really, really great to basically just hear Jason break down what I've heard him talk about before with the use of Notebook LM and open source textbooks to build a custom project management assistant. So think of like having a professor at the Wharton College of Business or Harvard Business School or whatever, not only that level of expertise, but then an artificial intelligence entity that can ingest an unlimited quantity of information and then using that to help keep your projects on track. It was really, really powerful. And as a result, folks, last night after the webinar, I canceled my subscription to Chat GPT with OpenAI, which I've had for 2+ years. One of the articles we may talk about tonight was also an influence on that. But there's some big changes happening, and Google is just really doing some great stuff. So Jason, Peggy's asking in the chat if the webinar was recorded. I don't think it was it?
It was recorded, yeah, and I think they will put it up on YouTube here, I would imagine, in a week or two, and I'll share links out of that over the socials, Peggy, because I thought that went really well. And and one thing I would just note is that it's still, all this stuff is still very DIY, right? Like, and you are bringing your kind of build it yourself mentality to it, but I think that soon enough the tools will be functional enough that you can just do this out of the box, right? In fact, today Google released its agent framework to Google Apps for Education, which is amazing. You have to turn it on to get it, but we're starting to experiment with it. But soon enough, I think that Gemini will be functional inside of the Google ecosystem enough, Copilot inside the Microsoft ecosystem enough that it's going to help you do this without having to build a whole lot yourself. But if you really want to learn about how AI works and what it could possibly do, I think building your own whatever it is, right? I termed it a project management platform, but curriculum planner or communications piece. I mean, this is this kind of stuff we're doing at MTDA because we want to make sure that humans are making all the calls here, but if we can pull in expertise in the form of, you mentioned, I think the untapped source is open source textbooks, right? There's no licensing problems there. I would assume at some point we'll find some sort of licensing regime that allows you to use AI or use your paid for resources in some kind of AI training model. But until that time, I think these are all really great examples of how to use these tools. So Dr. Fryer, thank you for doing all the links tonight. Where would you like to start? AI will be a rabbit hole for sure. But
yeah,
like
let's start on some other stuff. Hey, this is weird. Maybe it's because I announced this a little earlier than usual, but we were like 17 live viewers. We've got 8. So for folks who may not know, you can go to edtechsr.com and you can click the links and get to our Google Doc where we have all of our resources. We are now on Substack, and we are keeping up with the publication of sharing not only the articles we do talk about, but those we don't. But we'll put those into the... Yeah, we've posted the links. Peggy's asking. So I'll go ahead and share. Oh, this is kind of weird. Huh, that's weird. There's a strange like triangle. Huh. Sharing updated due to a policy change. Some users may no longer have access due to an administrator policy change. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. It was something with your bigskydebate.com. Did you lose that domain?
Oh, I did. Well, yeah. And I wonder if someone else actually picked up that domain.
The organization settings prevent this person from opening the file. Bizarre. Okay. Well, here, Peggy and everybody else, I'm going to put this link directly to the Google Doc into the chat and see if you can open it. Let's talk about social media. Full disclosure, after putting a bunch of links in tonight, I went to Gemini and I said, hey, Gemini, we haven't had a show for 2 weeks. Here's our link. Look at our last 5 shows, get a feel for the links that we have. Give me the 20 links that we don't include already and tell me what they are. And so this was one of the ones that they did. So this is from the Associated Press today on December 3rd, 2025. The headline is Australia to enforce social media age limit of 16 next week with fines of up to $33 million. And so if they, quote, fail, if the big players, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Kick, Snapchat, Threads, if they fail to, quote, take reasonable steps to remove the accounts of Australian children younger than 16 from December 10th, then they could face up to 50 million Australian dollars, which is US $33 million. Twitch was added to the list of age-restricted platforms, and the commissioner is going to be sending the 10 platforms notices on December 11th, demanding information about the numbers of accounts removed. And it says that they recognize this may take a while, but this is a pretty big deal. And there's another article we have about AI regulation. And this is part of the landscape of the internet. We've talked about this for a long time on the show. You know, Europe with the GDPR has had a big outsized impact. I don't know about outsized, but they've had a big impact on a lot of things, and some for the good. I think Europe is the one that pushed Apple to move to USB-C as a common standard for all of their smartphones and iPhones, and iPads as well. But what are your thoughts about this, Jason? We haven't talked about age verification in a while, and I know there's a whole lot of sides to this in terms of privacy and other things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really of mixed feelings about this. I do think the age verification process is clunky and is really subject to hacking, right? And I received a notification the other day that all my personal data was apparently compromised with my health insurance, which is troubling for sure. And they offered me a free year of credit monitoring services, yada yada yada. And once that information's out, I mean, it gets traded all over the place, right? And so if you're going to have a database of if you're going to have a database of things like identification and personal information, you better secure that like Fort Knox. And I've seen many references to the fact that the companies that have been in the age verification space or other kinds of verification, like student verification or teaching verification or whatever it is for whatever purpose, they do get pretty regularly hammered and hacked. And so I have strong concerns about that. But here's what I would also say. Like, I think we've given the social media companies a long time to try to figure out the impacts on teens and younger users. There's a story every other week about how Meta knew this and Meta knew that relatively early in the process, and I just don't feel like the social media companies are stepping up to fix it, right? Or to utilize their own solutions. We can't rely on them to regulate themselves. And so this is the next logical step, in my humble opinion, that it really is a very regulation necessary environment. And I think that we should probably be going further than this, but I just don't think it's a problem to set 16. I would even be okay with 18 with social media. And I realize that's highly, I would imagine, highly troubling for teens currently using the tools. But I mean, the early data out of cell phone bans is suggesting that it significantly improves student engagement and measures of success. And again, I don't like bans as a strategy, but here we are in 2025. What else do we do, right? It's one of the reasons why I want schools to proactively help figure out AI pieces for kids, because in absence of stronger top-down regulation, we have to make sure our students have a full sense of how the tools work and how they might impact their life and their work. And I think that's all a huge part of the process. But yeah, I again, not my preferred way of doing it, but what choice do we have?
One thing I'll observe is that in some cases, or maybe the majority, this is being done by IP address and the country of origin of your IP address, which is going to be interesting for VPNs, right? Because if kids would have access, or anybody access to a VPN, and then be able to select the country you'd like to connect from, then connecting from outside Australia and another country where that's not applicable, is going to change. It certainly puts increased burdens on technology companies, but I am totally in agreement that the pendulum has been so far towards the let's not regulate with social media, but with technology in general. And we're certainly seeing that with AI as well. I do think there's really, really good reasons to have regulation. I'd recommend everyone read Stephen Johnson's book, what is it called? Extra Life. And it's really the story of not just vaccinations, but double-blind surveys, but the role of government in terms of bringing in regulation and the need that we have to not just like open up the market to say, hey, go and do whatever you want. So let me grab another regulation-related article. This is from Ars Technica from also today, and the headline is Republicans drop Trump-ordered block on state AI laws from the defense bill. And if you're not familiar, what the Trump administration was pushing for was to put into the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, a prohibition, a federal measure that would block states for 10 years from doing any kind of regulation about AI. I wonder who's supporting this? Probably the AI companies. So I think it's positive that is not happening. California, as far as I know, is the leading state that we have that has been doing some AI regulation. It is a wild landscape, right? And it's interesting from a constitutional standpoint, right? Because the federal government constitutionally has the authority to regulate interstate commerce. But a lot of things that happen on the internet aren't just commerce. And so there's a lot of legal stuff to go with this. But while I do think that regulation is needed, I think that a move to just say, hey, let's prohibit all regulation for 10 years, that doesn't seem to be well reasoned and well thought out. So I'm glad to see that.
Let me add another quick thing here. Speaking of regulation, I had this right under the social media article. You may have seen this, Wes, but Wisconsin and Michigan have proposed state legislation to ban VPNs in their state. And
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, the Electronic Freedom Foundation, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has a really great article on this on November 13th that I added to the document. But about that, first of all, it's probably not feasible to do that, right? Like, since a lot of VPNs can be set up in a kind of an ad hoc way, right? Like, how would you determine this VPN versus that VPN? I'm thinking about the open source Google VPN outline, which you can set up on a home server, so you can go home and then back out again and ping in and out. But I'm with the author of the article here that I get why people perceive VPNs are problematic, and they do provide shield for naughty activity. But the bottom line is that it also provides extraordinary amounts of protections for people that need to be able to get around the internet privately, not the least of which is getting in and out of countries that are not on our holiday card list, that really would be we want to be able to communicate with individuals on the ground there. So certainly a really interesting development. But man, if you're going to ban something, why VPNs? Like, I'd rather have you ban TikTok, even though I think the TikTok ban's a terrible idea. Like, the bottom line is that to focus on VPNs is pretty silly.
And well, this raises so many issues, including how vital it is that our legislators and elected officials have good knowledge about technology and the impacts, and also the importance that it is for us in our different roles to influence that. Here's a quick little fact I learned about the Air Force Academy. So when we were there for Parents Weekend in September, they have opened this really phenomenal cyber building, and their cyber program, I don't know how it stacks up against other places in the country. I would guess it's probably up there. But it's real interesting because the only cadets authorized to use VPNs are the cyber majors and the students that are in those particular classes. VPNs can be really, really important. And I think that this is, maybe graciously we could say it's well-intentioned, but we just have to, we have to be careful with this. And I don't know, this is where a lot of folks will come down on the side of less regulation is better, because if you do open the door to regulation, who knows what you're going to get, and you're probably going to get some things that are not great. But it's super interesting to see Australia, leading with this, and this will be something that we'll continue to talk about, I'm sure, because there are a lot of implications for a lot of different services. I want to get into some AI articles. This one kind of is, I guess, a little bit. Well, yeah, it is. Let me see if there's anything else we want to do before. Well, there's a pretty big Google blog article. This is from today, the Google blog, and it's how institutions worldwide used Google for education tools in 2025. So this is like the Google 2025 year in review. In fact, let me see. We were doing this last time where we were sharing the screen a little bit. So let's see if I can share the screen here. I don't know how that works on our. Oh wow, isn't that interesting? We are streaming two simultaneous streams, one to a vertical and one to a typical horizontal. So it's interesting what it does there on the vertical. So Gemini and Notebook LM, those, as we've talked about on the show, have been rolled in directly to education. And if you're not using those tools now, hopefully you'll be using them soon. If you are a Google for Education school. It talks about, preparing for interviews, drawing connections between material. There's all these different, it's sort of like prompts, but all of these different, uses. Chrome OS and Google Classroom have a lot of different new tools for teaching and learning. Lots of updates. I'm not using Google Classroom anymore. I'm fully in the Canvas ecosystem. But I know that a whole lot of schools continue to rely on Google Classroom as a free learning management system. AI literacy that they are working on updating, Gemini certifications, AI literacy resources. I mean, I really do think that we are in the midst of a seismic change in education. And we can make the argument that, this is, I think it's the most challenging year to teach ever because of artificial intelligence and the challenges that it presents to traditional assessments that many schools have been using. So it's good to see Google on the move. And I love these kinds of year in review things are really good to kind of take stock of, wow, here are the big things that have happened in the past year.
Yeah, totally. And I would also add to that too, that, I mean, AI is forcing some conversations for sure, but I do think that there is something to we mentioned this a couple of times. Ethan Mollick has a great article from 2023 called "The Homework Apocalypse," and it's an article I refer to often. But one of the things that I talk about is that I could certainly. I get why some people are skeezed out by these AI tools. I totally understand it. I have a more middle ground view, but get a lot of the criticisms. But the bottom line is that education has been suffering from some issues for a while regarding how students complete homework, right? And the point that Professor Mollick makes is that students have been Googling their homework for a bit now in a way that diminishes the impact of those particular exercises, right? And that it matters, but also doesn't matter that these are research-driven strategies. If a student's not engaging in the homework the way it's designed, then it's not going to be an effective tool, and at that point is just a theater. And I'm not saying that makes me happy. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying it's the reality of the situation that we're in. And so I continue to be very interested in like if AI isn't the way to head in a new direction, then what is the other direction, right? What can we design? What kind of learning environments can we embrace that prepare students for the future, but also acknowledge the complexities of learning?
Peggy's commenting in the chat that this doesn't sound like anything new. Students have been doing it. This will segue pretty well into some articles about academic integrity and about these AI detectors and what I think our responsibility should be as educators, administrators, teachers, whatever our role is, because we are seeing incredibly large numbers of students being accused of academic dishonesty, and in some cases, it's because of these tools, which are not reliably effective. So we can kind of get into that. I want to comment that I don't know why we somehow spiked a little bit with live viewers, but for the first time, I had to ban and remove a couple folks from the chat. So if you're following our chat,
becoming so popular, Wes. Our
oh my
time's
gosh,
here.
we're going viral. It's just crazy. Okay, let's do a vibe coding AI article, and then we can jump in. I definitely want to get into this AI and academic integrity. It's actually the category we have the most. This is from Times of India, not one of my normal reads, I will admit. The headline says, Anthropic studied its own engineers to assess how AI is changing the workplace. And here's what they said. And so, having just read this article, they talked about how, they're collaborating more with the LLMs and the AIs. And in some cases, they're collaborating less with peers. But in general, like, these are the coders that are working for Anthropic, and most of them are really positive. They're finding themselves to be more productive, and they're also finding that they're not doing as much low-level coding, so they're dealing with it at a more abstract level. But some of them are finding that to be really rewarding, and I think it is absolutely fascinating. I continue to do quite a bit with vibe coding. In fact, I can share more about some side work that I am attempting to do. All of my stuff is on GitHub that I've been basically vibe coding. But this idea of software engineering itself changing, the article mentions, in the early days of coding, I mean, I guess coders were just there was less intermediation. And so one of the things that these AI tools are doing it's changing the nature of coding in a respect, but the knowledge of the code and you could go back to the code. It's fascinating to have these quotations coming from, current coders working at an AI company. And I think you've worked quite a bit with Anthropic. That article didn't work. Peggy says, it was too long. Okay. Let me shorten it. It is sometimes that happens with very long links that the titles get long. So I'll shorten it, Peggy, and give you another version. Thanks for telling me that didn't work. Any thoughts about that? Do you have coding classes for the Digital Academy? And
Yeah, we do. And I would say that, in fact, I know that there's for sure a couple teachers in the Bozeman School District in Montana that have been exploring some vibe coding strategies for students. But the big picture is that if you really want to dig in deep on the debate about vibe coding, go to Reddit and go to the vibe coding subreddit, because there's a healthy number of both pro vibe coding and highly anti vibe coding people in that space, and it will stun you actually about the amount of debate that's happening in these particular technologies. But I still think that there is something to the fact that a lot of coding is very formulaic, right, and framework based. And if it can help an experienced coder make code more efficient, or help see code in a different way, that's my experience. I'm not a vibe coder. I vibe coded things, but I run out of my abilities pretty darn quick, and I don't have the ability to fix them. So that's the beginning and the end of my vibe coding, right?
What's interesting though is being able to use it as a coach to tutor and to be able to extend those skills.
Yeah,
So
totally.
what
Yeah.
I'll say that for my middle school computer programming class, which we're just wrapping up, we got about 7 or 8 class sessions left. I think I'm going to give my students a choice with their final project, and I'm going to let them use AI. One of them is going to be to create some mini games in Minecraft education. And one of the real interesting things, because we do a lot of Scratch coding, which is block based, but Minecraft education, which uses make code, is not only available block based, but you can switch over to a JavaScript version or to a Python version. And so, Jason, much like you built the project management tool, I'm going to do something similar in Notebook LM, loading up some manuals and tutorials about the specific JavaScript for Minecraft education, and then see how that might be able to jumpstart, some of the creation of some simple mini games. And I don't know, I'm excited about it. I signed up to do a summer class for our school next summer that is about, mini games in Minecraft education, because that's what I found last summer. That was the favorite thing my middle schoolers wanted to do, was create some games and gamify. And so anyway, just this idea of being able to go so much further than your current technical coding skills will take you. But then, being able to, use your mind to think of, like, what do I want this to do? What will the gameplay be? What will the interaction be like? And I don't know, it's like joining a team with much more experienced coders, where you can bring your creativity and your imagination and your knowledge of games, but you don't have to have that same deep level of coding expertise. And it really, for me, it's super exciting, because it just opens up possibilities that were closed otherwise.
Yeah. One thing that I am anticipating doing is, because I'm ridiculous, I did buy, I don't know if you saw this, they're manufacturing Commodore 64s again.
No.
Yeah. Some guy bought the name, and now they're manufacturing modern day Commodore 64s, and they have an HDMI plug on it. Oh, that's not what I intended, was the thumbs down gesture. They have an HDMI on it, and then they put an ARM-based chip in there that they have to, kind of tweak to get it to work. And then it basically is a functioning Commodore 64. So one of the things, and I always wanted a Commodore 64. One of my closest friends in elementary and middle school had one, and so I spent a lot of time in his house playing with his Commodore 64. But it's where I learned to program in BASIC, and so so I would like to try to vibe code some basic games. And you remember back in the day, I think that the formal term for these is like magazine type-ins or something, but you'd go buy these magazines at the bookstore that had literally code you would type in to your computer in order to create games. I'd like to explore that a little bit with vibe coding, right? Because I've asked around a little bit about, and by asking me, I'm going to talk to ChatGPT about, how possible it is, right?
I talked to my LLM.
Yeah. And it might be, and so is it a useful thing? No, but it's a good place to put my creative energy. Yeah, but. Yeah, that's where I'm anticipating doing a little vibe coding.
Okay, so I'd have to tell a quick story, because anyway, I just will. Commodore 64. So when I was in 7th grade, that's when the Commodore 64 was at Manhattan Middle School in Manhattan, Kansas. And math class was where we were introduced to coding, and it was BASIC. That was all you really did, was you coded in BASIC. And so, those of us from that era will remember the excitement of a 2-line program, 10 print or question mark, look, this is awesome. 20, line 20, go to 10. Oh, it's a loop. But like, we saved on cassette tape, right? I could bring a regular cassette tape.
Yep.
Ooh, imagine that, from home, and then save my program. But that was, it didn't obviously launch me on a career of computer programming. I did, for the record, for my Eagle Scout project, code a custom DBase 3 Plus solution for our church's time and talent survey, which was supposed to help aggregate the time and talents, survey of, like, what do you want to do to volunteer? Anyway, it just, I'm rediscovering some of the joy of just early playing. This is a playing with media, but it's playing with code. Is. Yeah, and it's very fun to do with kids. Oh my gosh. One of the things I love teaching middle schoolers is they're so sharp. I'm positive that if I was teaching adults that are my age, there is no way I would be able to present material and information in the way that kids have a rapid uptake with it. And so it's it can be very, very joyful to see kids use their creativity and then be able to have agency over the computer. Again, this is so different than just like, do your worksheet in Google Classroom and turn it in kind of thing. We're talking about, creation and imagination and animation and game creation and things like that. So anyway, it's a challenging day to be in the classroom, but it's also an incredibly exciting day to be there. And I'm very thankful to be in this kind of special space with, coding and web design and some of the things we're doing.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I'm with you 100%.
Okay. Would you like to choose another article, sir?
Let's see here. Okay, let's jump down the Gemini rabbit hole. So, 2 weeks ago, November 18th, Google Gemini 3.0 was released, and we knew it was coming sometime in November. It's been around or the rumors have been around for a while, but I have to say it is really a very, very effective release. And I played with it for about an hour before I realized that, and ChatGPT has been, Gemini has been on top of the LM Arena rankings for some time now, 3-4 months, with Gemini 2.5. Well, with Gemini 3, it premiered on top of the rankings, and it's been able to hold that over the last 2 weeks, even though Claude released a new model last week, 4.5 Opus, and there's always new models out and functioning, and they basically released it to everyone everywhere, and you could access it in a more limited way with your free account, but I have yet to run into a lot of restrictions even on a free account. So it's pretty great. And amongst the things that are awesome about it, if you have a pro account, or I think this is also in the education account, you now have access to Nano Banana Pro, which is Nano Banana 2, and it is insanely good. Like, all of the issues from a year ago with image generation, text generation, following instructions, absolutely and utterly not an issue with Nano Banana 3, or I'm sorry, Nano Banana Pro. And now we can talk about how that wiggled out into other spaces here in a moment. But your impressions of Gemini Pro? I'm sorry, Gemini 3.
Well, in my Geeks of the Week, I'll talk about this transition. Well, so here's what convinced me. Two articles that are in the same category. This is from yesterday, December 2nd, Ars Technica. It's from their series called The Empire Strikes Back. That's interesting. The headline: OpenAI CEO, who of course is Sam Altman, declares, quote, "Code red," as Gemini gains 200 million users in 3 months. And as the article points out, it's ironic because a couple years ago, we heard Sundar Pichai of Google announcing a code red, saying that, hey, we have got to buckle down and reassign folks and really, catch up and surpass OpenAI. And so this is interesting, right? Because I think you need to experience this in order to really get it, because you can hear people, the AI hype cycle is real. And oh yes, it's another model. It's sort of like a new iPhone. Oh yay, it's a faster, processor and a more megapixels in the camera. Not that big of a deal. I think it really is a big deal. Nano Banana Pro, which is this image generator, is the best AI image generator that I have ever used. And if you've been with us on the show, what was the one that you were paying for a while? And I did as well.
Ideogram.
Yes. So Jason touted Ideogram, and I paid for that. To me, it is still absolutely amazing to be able to craft a prompt, even verbally, and then get that like with the voice to text tool in Google Docs, and then put that into one of these tools. Or sometimes I just dictate on my iPhone, and then an image appears. And how good it is. And I would say with the iteration now of, oh, I need to remove this. Oh, I want to change this word. ChatGPT 5 has been good, but it would still get stuck in things and not be able to make a change. I have not had that happen with Nano Banana Pro. And like I said, I have just made the decision. I think on the 14th, my Pro account is going to cancel out for ChatGPT Pro. So the other thing, and I think this is referenced in that same Ars Technica article, here's the tweet. This is from Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce.com. And he says, I've been using ChatGPT every day for 3 years, just spent 2 hours on Gemini 3. I'm not going back. The leap is insane. Reasoning, speed, images, video, everything is sharper and faster. It feels like the world just changed again. So this is why I think it also is really good to be playing with these tools, because it is, you will hear people talk about the speed of change, etc. But I mean, I think Jason and I are both experiencing it, in a really direct, powerful, visceral way, because we are asking these tools to do things for us with our day jobs, and then also just, for fun or whatever. And it is, I guess at some level, it's scary because, exponential growth curves. I mean, we've said over and over, oh, this is the worst AI that we're going to be using. But anyway, I've made that transition. I'm no longer paying for ChatGPT, and we can talk a little bit. I have a Geek of the Week about this. I think the AI bubble is real, and I think that OpenAI is way overvalued, and I think we're going to have a big economic impact to this, which is going to be unfortunate. And I, if I was a stock investor, I'd be doing things. But anyway, it's from a teaching standpoint, from an educator standpoint, from a personal productivity standpoint, we've said this over and over again. It is valuable to play with the tools. It is valuable to ask the tools about topics that you're very deep in, that you have good knowledge in. And I think also, and I like this, Jason, in your webinar last night, you talked about getting away from a vending machine approach. And a lot of times when I hear people tell stories about AI, and sometimes this is when they're like, oh, no, it won't do that, or no, it can't code. These people, I think, have taken a real vending machine approach, like, oh, I've just given it this. Oh, that was not good. Yeah, that's worthless. Versus like building a tool, creating your own library, querying this, being iterative. All of my good interactions with AI are not vending machine interactions. They're all iterative, and they usually involve me loading stuff into the LLM and then asking it to do stuff with those, PDFs or whatever files. So,
well, let me make a two other quick comments. And actually, I've got a screen share, Wes, if you would pop that up.
Oh yeah.
Google invented the technology that made ChatGPT possible, right? The idea of a transformer. They had a paper in 2017 called "Attention is All You Need" that came from Google scientists. It's considered to be the kickoff of all of these tool sets, right? And I just couldn't believe that Google would fall behind, right? Like that they would eventually catch up. And we've talked about this a couple of times on the show, that the other thing to know is that not everyone is so not everyone at Google that was part of those teams. A lot of people quit there because they were terrified of the technology, right? And I still think that we need to approach it with a healthy amount of cynicism. But Google invented this stuff, right? And so, in my mind, no wonder they're able to catch up again. But I just want to give an example of something here with Nano Banana Pro. This is my personal Gemini account. I think I'm still on. Like, I picked up a year for free because I had a Chromebook that had a year free on there. So I think I'm still getting it for free. By the way, if you're a student, you can get a year of Pro for free if you have a verified student account, in case you're curious. And that would include, if you're a graduate student. But so this is, Gemini, new Gemini Pro. And I'm going to click on Create Image. And I'm going to paste a prompt in that I actually stole from some Reddit thread about cool things you could do with Gemini.
This is called an AI parlor trick, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, which have their place and they're fun. Yes. So here we go.
So basically, I'm asking it to create a 12-month Looney Tunes calendar, right? And I'm giving it all sorts of extra instructions because I want to make sure that the calendar's accurate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But I want to do a couple of things. First, I mean, it is an intellectual property issue for sure, right? Because it doesn't push back at all when I'm asking for it to use intellectually property protected characters, right? But I'm going to go ahead and just click on this now, and it's going to load in a Banana Pro, and it's going to very quickly create this calendar for me. And I wouldn't, start printing these off and handing them to people until I vetted them, to make sure that the calendar is accurate, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, I've shown this parlor trick off a couple of times now, and 3 out of 4 times the calendar was fine. 1 out of 4 times it was just weird. But like when we say that it's a monumental leap forward in image generation, remember, we're not that long off of when Midjourney couldn't do any characters, right? Couldn't do any words accurately. And now, Nana Banana in the background here is creating, a pretty well. I mean, I don't want to predetermine that it was awesome, but I will say the 4 times that I've tried this has worked out pretty well. And yeah, there it is. So this is a 2026 calendar. If I download it, I think it will actually be a higher resolution. That is accurate for January. I know that for sure because the 1st is a Thursday, but it did exactly what I asked, which was to take Looney Tune characters and then do them in different art styles, right? So that's probably that's Bauhaus. That's noir style characters. That's Art Deco. And so, yeah, like the fact that it pulled this off, right, is stunning to me. And it took what, a minute, maybe a minute and a half to do that. And that just shows you the power of this pretty extraordinary tool.
And I think that's an example of like a super prompt, similar to what we've talked about with Mike Caulfield's SIFT super prompt, being able to do that. And that's something like for people who have expertise in a particular domain, it's like copying code. It's using someone's code that they've created, but then being able to put that into a prompt and then being able to customize.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about academic integrity. There's some really good articles here, and it's got to take us to the Bart Simpson episode. That if you're looking for something to talk about with professional development with teachers, I have not seen a video clip any better than this one. First, let's go to Education Week. This is back on September 18th. But this article says that Black students are more likely to be falsely accused of using AI to cheat. The numbers of students as a percentage who are being accused of cheating at some institutions is just staggering. And we've talked about before how AI and its training data reflects the biases of the training data. And so many of the biases which are present within our society and culture and our schools are reflected also within AI. The AP, the Associated Press, yesterday published an article saying AI may be scoring your college essay. Welcome to the new era of admissions. And, if admissions wasn't using an LLM, at least in part, to help filter and help create some initial drafts of, evaluations of college essays, I think what a lost opportunity that would be. Of course, it's interesting how many kids, again, students have been doing things for a long time. There've been a lot of kids, and parents hiring, tutors and others to help with that college essay. Actually, Jason, I had my first interaction with a video, basically a video interview tool. And I'm trying to see if I can find it. I don't know if I actually saved it before. Have you seen these video tools that like give you, two goes and you have 5 minutes to respond to this video prompt? Have you seen these before? Okay, I need to. This was associated with a innovation lab, and I thought I could pull up the link. Anyway, like authentic assessment. I mean, it was so hard for most of the adults today. It was so hard for us in our childhood to get information. And today that's completely flipped on its head, yet we're still operating in our assessments out of an information scarcity sort of mentality. So as we talk about all this stuff with, AI detectors and so much of this, I think, is like fighting the future. And so on that response, I don't know if you read Mark Watkins. Maybe I got this from you. This is from Mark Watkins' Substack, and it's a fantastic post. It's probably the best post I've read about AI in a long time. And his post says, our response to AI cannot be adversarial. And so he talks about AI detection not working. He goes into these stories of different institutions where like 1 in 5 kids have been accused of of cheating with AI, and it's not innocent until proven guilty. These kids are having to they're living in a Kafkaesque, like a Kafka, like
Yeah.
1984 type,
Yeah.
panopticon sort of situation with having to try to prove that they have not used AI. There's these tools called AI humanizers. And so it's this whole cat and mouse thing between, the students are trying to make their AI created materials not sound like AI. And this is an arms race among educational technology companies, right? There are educational technology companies out there really vying for our dollars, and they would like nothing more than to get us to subscribe to, whatever detection tool and whatever that they have. I have never heard of this. Do you know about prompt injection and this whole thing about the instructor? Oh my gosh. So this is from the Huffington Post on the 29th of, 20th of November by Will Teague. Headline, I set a trap to catch my students cheating with AI. The results were shocking. So professors hiding text like in a PDF, and then based upon the hidden Trojan horse text, the students' responses are going to refer to that. The little Simpsons episode I'm going to give everyone a link to references that in the context of bananas. But I mean, like, what are we doing here, folks? There's a whole lot of frustration out there. There's tremendous frustration, but I think there's also people not responding well to the challenges. So here is your homework tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I challenge you to watch this 7-minute episode on The Simpsons. So this is from the Express Tribune. The Simpsons season 37 episode tackles AI, cheating, and Chalmers slime craze. And so that is the article where I found it. I am not a real Simpsons fan, but this is a fantastic episode. I found the fandom, the Simpsons fandom wiki, and from that wiki, because I wasn't able to just find it myself, I got the 7-minute clip. So, and I mean, hopefully this is not going to be taken down. This is a 7-minute clip of the episode. And so basically there's scenes from home, there's scenes from school with teachers grappling with this, kids grappling with it. It's just very on point for some of the challenges that we're facing in schools today. So
I am a Simpsons fan, but that goes back to since I was it came out when I was in high school, right? So that was a year or two ago. In fact, I got in trouble because in chemistry class, my oven mitt that we used during chemistry class was a Bart Simpson oven mitt, and
you got in trouble for that.
I got in trouble for that. But the thing that I like The Simpsons. It's really well written. It's still very significant. But the last Simpsons episode that I kind of stumbled into and was unbelievably shocked by how well thought through it was they did an episode of piracy 10 years ago, like internet media piracy. And it was really spot on. So I did see smaller versions of this clip. I will go find a copy of the whole episode somewhere because I'd love to see it. But There's still a lot of amazing writing going on at The Simpsons.
Was my audio cutting out for you at all there?
It's not.
Yeah, Peggy's having some audio cut out. One of the things that's nice about StreamYard now is it records locally, and so if we do end up having some disruptions, it takes those local versions and uploads. So actually, I think Jason, this happened. I don't know if we'll need to, but we may need to stay connected afterwards for a minute to have it upload. All right, sir. Do you want to talk about the soul of Anthropic? Did you see this one on Gizmodo?
No, I did not.
Okay, so the headline here on Gizmodo from yesterday, Anthropic accidentally gives the world a peek into its model's soul. And it says, AI models don't have souls, but one of them apparently does have a soul document. Richard Weiss got a copy of Anthropic's latest large language model to produce a document referred to as a soul overview, which was seemingly used to shape how the model interacts with users and presents its personality. Amanda Askell, a philosopher who works on Anthropic's technical staff, confirmed the overview produced by Claude is based on a real document used to train the model. And what I would comment, because I haven't used Claude a ton, I have, but I've used ChatGPT the most, and I'm using Gemini more. My wife has commented, because she's been using Gemini Pro mostly now. She really likes the tone that it takes. We've talked about that lovely word that means
sycophancy.
Sycophancy. Thank you. Basically flattery. And the tone of ChatGPT and Gemini are just different. And I think that it's about their training models. And so it's really, really interesting. Anthropic was founded by, I think, former Googlers, but also OpenAI employees. And it was really, it is striving to be an ethical AI platform. There's some language around that, but it's explicitly focused on values and ethics, and hopefully will maintain that. I kind of think that OpenAI may have dropped that, but that was pretty interesting. It's still fascinating to me that these long conversations tend to sometimes go off the rails. The training sort of breaks down the longer that people interact with these tools. We're not talking at all tonight about some of these lawsuits that have moved forward with character AI and some of those sorts of things. In fact, I don't know, did we talk about that last time? What the defense was that OpenAI had for that case? They argued that the kid who committed suicide violated the terms of service and that he circumvented what the model was designed to do. So it was his fault that the model, told him to commit suicide and hide the rope that he was going to kill himself with and all these, terrible things.
Yeah.
These models are not completely safe, and they're not completely ready for whatever ready for prime time is.
Yeah, and the tools are not made for kids, right? Like that's one of the things that, and I saw an article. I didn't even click on it, but there's a bunch of AI toys that are making it onto shelves. They're not made by the traditional big toy makers in the United States. They're sneaking onto shelves. That like if you think about the Teddy Ruxpin from 30 years ago, that would kind of talk to you sort of. It's kind of like that, but with somehow some kind of mini language model in there. But I would never give that to a kid, right? Like I just the thing about AI is it acts more like a human than it acts like a kid. So, or I'm sorry, it acts more like a human than it acts like a computer, right? And so if you're approaching this stuff like computing, right, then you're going to be highly disappointed.
Well, that reminds me, and this will take us to our Geeks of the Week if we want to. We have done an end of year, sort of tech gadget show. I'll just do it now. I stole that idea for our December Media Ed Club for the Media Education Lab. So it's going to be next Monday at noon Eastern, whatever time that is in your time zone. And it is the holiday tech gadget wish list. So if you would like to get ideas for the geek in your life or for yourself, both sharing ideas and then also talking about them. Because I think that point about AI-enabled kids' toys is pretty important. I do not think I would not recommend that on anybody's list.
By the way, just because I had up a tab here, I just took the old Type In magazine basic computing magazines we talked about earlier, right? I took an image from one of those pages and stuck it into Gemini, and it not only extracted all the code out of there, it just offered to turn it into Python for me. So like recode it in Python. So it's now analyzing this, basic code from 1978, right? And it said, oh, it's the ELIZA a basic program, and it kind of walks me through it, and I asked it to to transcribe it, right, so that I would have copy and pastable code, and then it offered to translate the logic loop into Python, so you can see how modern equivalent would look, and now it's creating Python.
We won't end on this negative a note, but having experienced and witnessed this kind of AI power with coding, when you think about bad actors and the ways in which there are numerous folks that would like to steal identities and do a whole range of nefarious and bad things to individuals and groups, I really think it's incumbent on all of us, for our families, for ourselves and our organizations, to do a lot to protect ourselves, because you can certainly overspend on cybersecurity insurance and all this. It's a real rabbit hole, but our vulnerability as a society, as communities, and as individuals to bad actors is, it's significant. And these tools are being weaponized by folks who would do us harm. So thankfully, we're not going to end on that note. We're going to say some positive, cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Fryer, I think any other article you want to cover tonight?
No, let's just Geek of the Week it.
Okay, so your Geeks of the Week, sir.
Okay, I mentioned that I have transitioned from ChatGPT, although I probably will still use it tonight for a little project I'm doing. But gems are the custom GPTs of Gemini. And so I like to use this social media post formatter. So I've made a gem, that's the link to it. And you can simply drop a URL in that, and I have it format the links for the same format that we use here in the show, basically. I have been designing my lessons for class on a model that I like to call design, create, and share. And so today I went ahead and ported that from ChatGPT and a custom GPT to a Gemini gem. So again, that link is there, and it will generate this 20-point 4-row rubric and use that design, create, and share model. My sort of weird, not necessarily standard Geek of the Week, is a podcast, and it's from the author of The Big Short. It's called Michael Burry Speaks. Michael Burry is the guy who bet short during the housing bubble and the housing crisis, and the whole movie and book, The Big Short, is based on him, and he never gives interviews, and he just gave one. And I listened to that this morning before school, and it is really good. And he talks about the AI bubble, and he has a 2-year put on Palantir and NVIDIA. And then the last thing is that link I already dropped in, which is the holiday tech gadget wish list. So if you haven't joined us on Mondays, normally it's the first Monday of the month, but we had to move back a week. So it's next Monday, noon Eastern, holiday tech gadget wish list.
Awesome. Well, I just have an app to share that this is for the geekier among you that is looking, to experiment with both local and online models. It's called Goose AI. It's an open source piece of software that is kind of like some of the coding programs you can download. Actually, one of the things we didn't mention was that in addition to Gemini 3, they also released their kind of coding platform, and now I can't remember what the name of it is. It's Google
not
Google
Canvas
platform coding release.
Who can Google it fast? Is it Google Collab?
It is Google This is
Vibe
embarrassing.
code with Gemini. Google AI Studio.
Anti-gravity. No, Google anti-gravity. And
I
so
haven't heard of that.
yeah, Google Anti-Gravity is a pro. In fact, I'm going to share both tonight's My Geeks of the Week. Google Anti-Gravity is a coding platform that you can download either as a command line interface or a desktop app on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I gave it access to my Obsidian Vault, which is all in Markdown. And as it turns out, it would manage my Obsidian Vault for me. So if you're looking for a vibe coding platform, that's a pretty solid start. And then Goose AI is a similar open source piece of software that allows you to plug into either local AI that you're running through something like Olama or open router models, various pieces of that, and does an interesting job, and also plugs into a bunch of MVC servers. So none of these tools are really for the faint of heart. These are really for the experimental people out there if you're building your own tools. But I think that you playing with these tools, I think, is really important to building critical AI literacies.
Absolutely. Well, we did it again, sir. We talked for 65 minutes, and we even kept some live viewers there. So thank you.
Yeah. Not just the originals that were coming in to troll us. But we know we've had a big time when we attracted trolls. Dr. Fryer, where can people find you on the internet?
I've had a website for a while called westfryer.com, and you can find lots of links there to connect with me on westfryer.com/after. That's where all the social media profile links are. And how about you?
You can find me at aicentrist.com. But hey, this is the EdTech Situation Room. We're a once a week-ish podcast, maybe not a whole lot for the rest of the months.
Couple times a month, few times a month.
Yeah, we're in and out. We hope you can join us live when we're broadcasting. It's Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or no, Eastern Day. Well, just whatever the current situation is.
Eastern time, 9
p.m. Sometime in the middle of the night UTC. If you can't join us live, they're always on YouTube. So go there to find this and past episodes. We hope you have a wonderful December. Stay safe, stay savvy, and we'll see you next time on the EdTech Situation Room. Good night.
Good night, everybody.